Well, for more, let's cross to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Zvi Eckstein is head of the Aron Institute for Economic Policy at Reichman University. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Just to set the table here, if you will, how much trade does the European Union do with Israel currently?
Well, the European Union itself, as you showed, close to, it's not only the Union, but also all the European countries, about 40% of the export. Export is about 35% of the GDP. And given the studies that have been done already in the past on sanctions, we calculated that would have a 10% reduction, which amount to about 1% to 1.5% reduction in GDP. So that's a significant impact on the export. Should I continue, then there is the import side, and the most impact of the import is the inputs of production. And the European are a very large part of the import of production inputs. And also here, sanctions would reduce substantially the internal production using raw materials. And we expect that that would be another about 0.5% GDP. So altogether, it's about 1.5% to 2% reduction in GDP, which is huge. That's really a reduction substantially in standard of living.
Yeah, just to remind our viewers, there's the actual sanctions part on, for instance, targeting far-right government ministers. That probably has little chance of passing because there are nations like Hungary that can issue a veto. But you don't need a veto for measures such as tariffs, and tariffs most notably on agricultural goods imported from Israel. They're talking about 37% of the total Israeli goods imported into the EU. So you only need a qualified majority. How much of an impact?
As I said, the impact on the production side would be a reduction about 1% from the export, all the export. Agriculture is just a small part of the export, although it's highly visible and people talk about it. So that's basically overall the sanctions we expect overall would be about 1.5% reduction to 2% reduction in GDP. But in addition, since we import a lot of products, it will make the cost of living in Israel very high. Already, cost of living in Israel is about 30% higher than average European. So that will be really an important negative factors on the standard of living in Israel. That's hard to measure exactly, but it's also will have a significant cost of living. And in general, Europe is the tourist target of most Israelis. And also sport is an activity that Israelis enjoy playing with European in basketball in particular. And I think sanctions on all these activities would have a huge negative impact on, I would say, even potential brain drain.
What do you hear?
Say that there is a lot of.
We've seen that brain drain for over several years. Have you spoken to people inside of Israel since Monday, when there was this speech by the prime minister where he said Israel's going to have to be more self-sufficient? He talked about it becoming a super Sparta, in a nod to the ancient Greek martial state. And I know that one of the big business leaders association has pushed back against that. Overall, are investors and the business community in Israel worried when Benjamin Netanyahu talks about a super Sparta, or they think it's just political rhetoric?
Huge. They're worried a lot. This is really making Israel, cut off Israel from a global economy would be basically a huge negative impact on the economy. It's more than sanctions. It would have a huge impact on everything. And it's also culturally. we are very much connected to Europe. People have to remember that we have hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have European passports. Israelis and Jews in general will move if they don't see forecasting positive results. And I think the key point is that whether we are going to have election in the next year. And I think most people are hopeful that there will be election, and all those Sparta speeches and all the policies that run by the prime minister today, including the invention of Gaza, would cease, and we will have a government that will have a more reasonable policies regarding the Palestinian in Gaza, and in general working more with the coalition in the world in order to get the hostages back and provide reasonable civilian economic life to the Gazan people.
The European Union, a huge market economically. There's criticism here over whether the Commission caved in its dealings with Donald Trump. For Israelis, right now, after this proposal by the Commission, does Brussels seem weak or strong?
Well, so far, I should say, as an observer of the European, there is a split in Europe. I mean, there is countries like Germany in particular, Austria, the Czech Republic, even Italy were supporting Israel. And given that the Hamas is a terrorist organization, and given that the Hamas is started this war and holding up to now about 20 live hostages and about 28 bodies, and the way the Hamas has been treated Israel since the 7th of October, we get some and justifiable sympathy. But however, most Israelis, generals and people who understand what's going on, we basically weaken the Hamas enough that we can reach some kind of an agreement that we stop the war and get the hostages back, and also again work in a reasonable way to let the international community to rebuild Gaza, but allow Israel to prevent any terror activity from Gaza. And this direction, it seems feasible. And I think if Israel will go this direction, all the sanctions will disappear.
Zvi Eckstein, many thanks for joining us from Philadelphia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.